Okay, we should be live.
Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
Do we have people? I'm gonna post the announcements. Post this one. Post this one. And then post the socials ones. Let's see. Oh, okay, I didn't actually write them yet. Go live.
It looks like people...
Oh, hello. We're getting people. Hello, this is the Sprinkles. I'll be in Discord. Can you hear us fine? Is the audio okay?
It said it's very reverby.
Oh, is it reverby?
There's a checkbox over on the wall panel over there. You can check to turn it off.
Oh, it's in world. Okay, let's see.
Right here.
I'll turn it off. Hello.
Is that better?
Does it sound better? I'm still posting.
Oh, you have a cat in the chat.
Ah, it's a cute lad. It is a cute lad, oh my god. Hello. Ah,
And Sarah's there too. Well, fuck you too, pal.
What?
I mean...
It's doing the flirting.
I mean... Oops. I swore on stream, lol.
Oh, oh there. I'm just finishing posting the announcements. Is the audio better now?
They said, yeah, that's good.
Okay. Post this. Post that. Post. There we go. Okay, we're live. Hello. Hello everyone. Feels kinda off. Weirdly off. I need to adjust the angle, I think. There we go. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Resonance. I'm Froox, I'm here with Sarah, and we're gonna be answering any questions you have about Resonite. So feel free to ask whatever you'd like. Make sure to put a question mark at the end of your question. That way it kind of pops on our pinned messages and we don't miss it. We also have some questions that are from Discord, so we're gonna go through those first while some Twitch questions pile in. And I think we should be ready to get started. I'm gonna find a good spot for the camera. Let me just adjust it a little bit. I'm gonna create an anchor. I had to like run a little bit because...
I keep getting distracted by my reflection in the floor because it's so warbly.
Oh yeah, just like we can see ourselves on the ground. Actually, hold on.
It's very silly.
Let me show you. You can grab the camera, you see it, like we have like warbly reflection. I don't know how warbly is it on camera, but it's warbly. Zip. Okay, so we should be able to get started. So first, let's start going through the questions from Discord. So the first one we got, actually, I don't know why the camera feels really weird here. Okay, I'm gonna put it here, there we go. So the first question from Discord is from computer user fake. Is it possible to have Resonite attached to the Unity render while in the editor? Asking because if that's possible, it will make easier to test potential bug fixes or new features. Yes, it is. I've actually done that, like, you know, when debugging it myself. I don't know exactly from memory, but like it definitely is possible. Like I've had like mechanisms for doing that. Next question we got is from Zenuru. Zinner is asking, is it possible that YDMS might sell licensed technology like Photon Dust, Strike Post to third parties in the future, for example as Unity assets, or are those too closely coupled with Froox engine? So they're kind of closely coupled to Froox engine, so it would be kind of harder. Like we would essentially need to like make custom Unity integration that sort of extracts them. For some of them it might be easier than others, but generally it would require quite a bit of work to like do it for Unity, and like some of the systems are very loose, like very tightly coupled with Froox engine, so we probably don't want to take on like the burden of like maintaining a whole like another integration that's like, you know, separate. Maybe like some of the systems, maybe like we could license, maybe not. Like I would actually say it's more likely would like license them as their own systems rather than like Unity integration if we like, you know, go down the route. We had some interest before from some other companies for like some other components, like for example the asset variant system and stuff. So, and it's kind of, you know, like Unity kind of independent. So I guess the gist of it is like if it requires a lot of work and a lot of maintenance on our end for Unity, then probably no. If it's something that could like be relatively isolated, then we could maybe. Oh my god, thank you, video underscore. It's been
so many.
Oh my god, look at this. Yay!
Holy crap.
It's so many.
That's a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yay. But yes, it kind of depends on the system. It's kind of not our like core business, but if there's an opportunity that arises, that may be, but it's not our kind of core thing, because like it does require quite a bit of focus, and you know, if you were to put focus onto licensing those components, that will take it away from other things we need to work on for Resonite itself. So like we would be splitting our focus for things.
Yeah.
Oh my god, thank you. Thank you for the raid.
Particularly some things for like Unity. Unity does not like Unity doesn't like certain things that you typically do in like a normal runtime, like, you know, handle lots of strings.
Yeah.
And what is Froox engine if not made up of lots and lots of strings?
Well, there's actually another thing. A lot of the libraries, like for example Photon or Strike Post, they're gonna be dependent on like .NET 10. Unity doesn't have .NET 10, it has Mono, which means, you know, it won't even run inside of Unity. Which means like we would have to like ship some kind of, you know, multi-process architecture just for the particle system, and like I don't know if you want to run another process just for a particle system or for the IK. So yeah, like if it requires integration with Unity, then like it's pretty much no, like we're not gonna do that. Next question is from Missing. Missing saying, did you ever receive a physical fan mail, and what was the strangest one? No, I have not. Nobody sends me anything. No, actually I got somebody sent me a thing, but it wasn't a fan mail. Okay. Next question is from Computer User Fake. There was this one particular VR-related feature that current Unity renderer has that you said was removed in later instance Unity. I think it was single pass instance stereo rendering, but I don't quite remember if that was correct. If you know what I'm talking about, what was the feature called again? The recent GitHub issue on open sourcing renderer gave me idea of making unofficial fork with the purpose of seeing how far Unity version could be updated while keeping that feature. So the problem is any Unity version newer than 2019, it breaks combination of deferred rendering, which is what we're using, with single pass stereo. And deferred we kind of need to use because we have a lot of dynamic content, and Unity doesn't have like, you know, the better methods like, you know, cluster forward. Meaning if you just use the classical forward like pipeline, like suddenly lots of worlds will just hugely spike in performance because like they need to render all the meshes like a billion times. So we kind of need to use deferred, and then like there's the single pass stereo rendering, which reduces a lot of overhead of like rendering both like, you know, two eyes. So that's another thing, and like the problem is they don't work together anymore in newer versions of Unity. Like you have to drop one or the other. There's some discussion on like dropping this single pass rendering with like new Unity versions, which like you can get to work, but my main concern is, how does that actually impact performance in VR, especially on weaker machines? Because if that like hurts performance a lot on weaker machines, then like, we might not want to do that, because now like users on those machines are not able to run well. So it kind of creates like this kind of difficult situation of like, we can, if we want to upgrade to a new version, we have to drop one of those, more likely the single pass rendering. And there's a question like, does any performance improvements in the newer versions of Unity, would they compensate for the single pass rendering being dropped?
Unity on their wiki cites that like the single pass instant stereo rendering is meant to help reduce CPU usage like significantly, and they emphasize the significantly on that part. And so like if you're in VR and you have to render the scene with multipass, that's like a lot of extra overhead to like dispatch draw calls to the GPU twice, or like once per each eye. Whereas with single pass instance, it can actually send it as like an instanced draw call.
So actually, we're not using that one.
Oh, we're not?
No, there's a different one.
We're not using instance.
Okay. No, it's not an instanced one. It's the other one.
Oh, okay. Gotcha,
Like it does reduce, but like it's a bit different one. But yeah, it's at least like I don't think we are, because I remember like the instance one like also having like some issues. I know it's a weird situation. So
well,
the point is, we need to like drop one or the other, and it seems likely like dropping like either of them like would cause like performance issues for weaker machines. There's like, and like I said, there's some reports of users who said like it doesn't seem to hurt as much, but we would need to see some solid data to consider it. So until we see solid data, especially on like weaker machines, we're probably not going to consider it officially. If there's solid data that even on weaker machines it doesn't seem to make much of a difference, at that point like we would maybe consider it. But again, we need to see solid data first, and we're probably not gonna like put a lot of effort ourselves to like get the solid data like when we don't think it's gonna help. But that's part of the reasons like why open source the render is like, if anybody wants to like take a stab at it, gather data, do test builds, feel free. It kind of saves us time, and like if the data looks good, like then we can start considering it officially. But yeah, like our overall goal is like just move away from Unity completely, so like just kind of not deal with this situation like whatsoever, and just switch to a renderer that's using like cluster forward rendering method, that's much more performant, and pretty much like will resolve all the issues like that we're having.
Not to butt in once more, but I just wanted to very quickly clarify something that I saw in the chat very quick. They didn't remove single pass stereo entirely. They just removed it for the built-in pipeline, and we have to use the built-in pipeline.
I mean, it's actually so a while back, like I made a bug report like with the newer versions of Unity, like that it's broken with effort, and they specifically told us we're not fixing this. Either stop using it or switch to like one of the like the universal rendering pipeline, which like at the time like we also couldn't because it lacked features that we needed. So it kind of got stuck in this like weird like limbo situation. And another thing, like where people like we could like upgrade the like universal rendering pipeline, but it's gonna be a really big project, and if we're gonna spend that much time, we might as well just put that time into moving off Unity completely and resolve whole like slew of problems instead of just one. Pity. Next question is from Papaltine. Papaltine is asking, have you used any manually memory managed programming languages, C, C++, Zik, Odin, etc.? What have you used them for? Right, have you heard of Handmade, Hero, game engine from scratch? Just actually did. Like, so before I started like maining C#, I was actually programming a lot in C++. And I've done like a lot of projects in it, like to the point like where I was like, this is a pretty cool language, and like and at the time like I knew a lot of people who were like kind of like not liking C++, and I didn't quite understand it. And it wasn't until like I started programming in C#, and I saw like that there's so much boilerplate and so many ways to shoot yourself in the foot, which adds so much overhead like when programming something, that there's actually like benefits, like I saw like a lot of the flaws. In terms of what I did with it, like I actually made also like a game engine, like sort of game engine. I was like building one for like making my games in C++ on top of the XNA framework. I've also written like compilers for like my kind of custom languages, and I wrote software simulators because at the time I was making like a custom experimental processor architectures. So there's like it's very experimental processor architectures that had like very like sort of novel or unusual ways of working, and I wrote like compilers for them, so I can like write code for them, compile it, and then I wrote simulators that allowed to simulate the behavior of that architecture, and it was all written in C++. I've also done like other stuff, like and I actually did like another project called Music String, which was this like sort of music program, like simple music programming language, where I was also like doing like the parsing and stuff, and then the audio synthesis in C++ that was like written in C++. I forget what else. Lots of like tiny projects and things. But I did the compiler and simulators were probably the biggest ones. The game engine I never actually fully managed like making game with it, but it was like making one where the engine it had like sort of like a palette system, so you could do a lot of like it was kind of sort of like a blend of like more modern engine with like the more old school like palette systems where we could do a lot of like kind of cool visual effects by just like shifting and manipulating the color palette in various ways. But like at the point like at some point like moved into C# and that kind of like nowadays I don't like touching like C++. I did actually also use like C++, like I was like messing with Arduino and some like other like things like that. So I don't like a whole bunch with it, but like nowadays I don't like to touch it as much. Because C++ can get very, very unwieldy, especially with bigger like code bases, and it just costs so much of your time to achieve the same result. And oftentimes, like if you write things well, you can achieve like very similar performance in C#, sometimes even higher. Like surprisingly, with like C#, the compilers can do sort of cross-library optimizations, which might not be possible to do, at least not easy to do with C++. Because kind of like how the linker kind of does things, but it costs like fraction of your like mental resources, which is another like very important thing to kind of consider. And it is much harder to shoot yourself in the foot with C# versus the manual memory management, because you have to like spend a lot of mental effort making sure you're allocating like things properly, and if you miss something like best case, like you're like just leaking memory. Worst case, like you introduced like a remote code execution error, or something like into your program, which is scary. If you want to like use like something that's more manually memory managed nowadays, it would be something like Rust, because that kind of solves a lot of those problems while sort of keeping that sort of low levelness with like very little like or zero abstractions. For the game engine, like Handmade Hero, like I haven't heard about it, so I don't know anything about it. But I'm sorry if you want to answer this one too.
Oh yeah, I've also had the displeasure of using C++. Less so C, because like C projects tend to be fairly self-contained and compile most of the time. But C++, no way, fam. I don't like it. Nothing compiles ever the first time. I have to go hunt down dependencies because there's no central package manager. There's like 50 different Turing-complete build systems out there that are like their own programming language. Do
you know the templating system is Turing-complete?
Yes, I do know that it is unfortunately Turing-complete. I know this. It's terrible. Yeah, I just don't like it. I like C# because I can literally, these days, I can just make a file. I don't even have to make a project. I can just make a file. I write C# in it. I do .NET run file, and it goes. Like, I can even put a shebang at the top, so I can run it like a shell script without even invoking .NET myself, and it will just invoke it for me. Like, it's great.
It's very neat.
Yeah. C# all the way. C++ can die already. Sorry, I don't like it.
It is a like a while back I was like looking into like the FBX SDK for like Resonite, and it's actually written in C++. And trying to like get it to like work with C#, and I found like the software to like generate bindings. And mind you, this was like years and years and years ago. But I found like the software to like generate bindings, which actually used the C-Lang compiler to like produce the AST, the abstract syntax tree, and then walk that to generate the C# bindings. The FBX SDK made C-Lang segfault. It made it crash. And I actually started like debugging why, and I like started diving into the code base, and I found like tried to isolate it, but it was so impossible to isolate because it seemed to be like it was failing in this like templating system, which had like templates nested within templates, where the nested templates were using version of the upper template within themselves. So there was like a circular recursion of the templates, and after several days I just kind of gave up because I'm like, this is such like a convoluted mess, like it just is not worth the time. So I don't really like it too much either, and every time like I have to like touch it like for something, I kind of get grumpy. Next question is from computer user fake. If someone manages to bash their skull against the wall hard enough and to successfully compile the render without the C++, would there be some kind of beta branch testing or return out ALT C++ improve performance? Yes, if we manage to compile with ALT C++ and stuff works, we'll probably do a pre-release for it. There's already been some movement, like some people like contributed like some fixes that make it like compile with ALT C++. So we'll see. I have to kind of sync up and see what's going with that, but if it is working, we'll definitely do a pre-release test and be like give this a try, see how it works. If it actually gives us like performance boost, we'll probably switch to it. Which again, thank you everyone for contributing. Next question is from Jack the Fox Author. Jack is asking, UIX tends to have z-fighting issues in some situations, most commonly encountered in UILI mode when player is far away from origin. I've been worrying for a while, would it be possible to completely eliminate those z-fighting issues altogether? From my understanding of rendering, which isn't great, the z-fighting comes from accuracy, so it's in the z-buffer, which is the buffer used to determine how far objects are away from camera. Correct order. However, since I'm unsure why UX needs a z-buffer to begin with, since the structure of UX always defined through the hierarchy of components canvas, couldn't the hierarchy be used to draw the elements in back to front order without needing the buffer at all? If it isn't possible, could I explain why? So let me show you. I'm just gonna grab a random thing. So this is UIX. I'm gonna demonstrate why it needs z-buffer because it blends with the world. Which is kind of like the main issue, like this doesn't exist in isolation. There needs to be like a backing z-buffer, otherwise like this is gonna render on top of things. The problem is it sort of causes issues with the z-test. There's like ways to kind of like deal with that, but some of the mechanisms we could like use for that are kind of like lacking because we kind of need like we need more control over like the exact rendering order, and like the way we do it with Unity is kind of jank a little bit, which is actually one of the hopes for the new custom engine, is like to be able to like have more control over that and not rely on like, you know, stacking the elements like properly. Because what we do is like we actually put like, you know, there's like a z pass like that kind of writes into the buffer, and it's kind of offset from behind, which tends to work in most cases, but it kind of becomes weird in certain angles for some reason. And there's like ways to kind of try to fix it, like where we offset it more, but then it kind of blends incorrectly with stuff in world, and it kind of gets problematic on its own regard. So if you have kind of more control over some of the stuff, especially like because the main thing we need to do is just render everything as a single unit, that would kind of help a lot, but some of it we're kind of lacking.
If you want good values that work for now, that like we found that work well in most cases, I need to remember the field. What?
They should be default, shouldn't they?
Well, I mean, I think they're default for like the UI, but I think like when people are making their own UI is when they have that problem. So like the good values that we use for our own UI, I'm just remembering the field names here. Field names.
It's like unit offset and unit factor.
Yeah, so we use an offset factor of 10 and offset units of 4,000 on our UI inlet with Zrite on for the backing material. So whatever your background is for your UIX canvas, turn on Zrite and then set offset factor to 10 and offset units to 4,000, and that should help prevent your UI from Z-fighting even when UI aligned, even when suitably far from the origin. So that's a good workaround in the meantime.
So with that, that's all the questions we got from Discord. So we should be able to start going through questions from the Twitch chat. So let's get started. So the first question we got from Discord is from Dusty Sprinkles.
The chat.
Let me move things a little bit because
this isn't Discord. This is Twitch chat.
Oh, Twitch chat. Sorry. My brain's not braining. Dusty Sprinkles asking, takes the first non-Discord question though. I forget if you've been asked this. Do you think ever try bringing back the file browser experiment you did like early Neos? It was called Fractus if you need blurring. No, I'm not bringing that back. That was an experiment and it didn't work, so I don't see a reason to bring it back. It's actually funny to me because like there's like so many things where like I would be like, I want to experiment with this. I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna like explore, and then like. Sometimes like the issue I like run into is like it's because it's very different from what people are used to. People are frustrated with it because they don't understand how it works, and they need to learn something new, and it's difficult teaching people something new. So it's like that's one of the things I kind of learned. It's really, really hard to do things differently, because if you do things differently, it goes against what people are used to and the workflows they know and the UIs they're familiar with, and that causes frustration because they have to learn new concepts and people don't like learning new concepts. So it makes it hard to just try to change approach for some things because you kind of limit your reach and make things feel like not intuitive, which is the thing. Like people will judge things like to be intuitive if it kind of conforms with what they are used to. So it makes it kind of harder to do these things. So I don't really plan to bring that back.
Yeah, but it's also still awesome as hell.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like interesting, but like. It's so weird because what's so weird about it is it's not even that. Like there's other parts, like we had for example the belt UI and we had the other menus, and at the time everybody was complaining about those. So people didn't like those things. There were so many problems. They were like, you need to fix your UI, you need to this is counterintuitive. So but the thing, I designed a new UI pieces based on the feedback and made changes to it, and it kind of helped resolve a lot of the issues. But then people will go at the old videos and they'll be like, oh, I wish I had that thing back, we should bring that back. And it's sometimes it feels like either people not aware or everybody kind of forgets, all the frustrations they had with it and the reason why it even changed. And when people look back at it, sometimes I feel like people are looking at the old stuff with sort of rose-tinted glasses, because they kind of forget how it was at the time and how many issues it was causing.
I think it's mostly in reference to the that file browser, because the line stuff.
It happens with everything. It happens with so much stuff. Yeah, I've actually had people even outside of the UI, we had people for example, be like, oh, Beppo has IK, we should maybe use that instead of final IK, and we're we used that. It was very bad at the time. Like, you didn't experience it maybe, but like, you know, people look at old videos, and like when you look at videos, like, you know, you don't really interacting with it yourself, so you don't really get for a feel for how it like works and how it interacts.
I've seen that Beppo IK. It's like gelatin.
It was Jello IK. We dubbed it Jello IK. But I've had it like happen with a bunch of pieces of UI where people are like, oh, like, should we bring this back? Suppose for asking, but is vintage story warbly? Only during temporal storms. Then it gets very warbly. Oh wait, does it mean the ground here is temporal storm? Oh no. Dusty Sprinkles asking, follow-up to the question about practice. If you didn't want to retry it, do you think it would retro file browser in future in general? Yeah, it's gonna be reworked. Like the UI is very old, so it is essentially gonna replace with data feeds, and like we're gonna have like our team design like nicer like UI pieces for it.
Hashtag bring back Jello.
No. Next question is from Director Pumpkin. What is the strangest issue you've had to fix? Oh my god, there's too many. The thing is, like, I usually, like, once I kind of fix them, after a while I tend to, like, repress them from memory. One that, like, I can remember, like, the first one that came to mind, is the issue with the Unity video playback and reading the data from the audio buffer from it. And I kind of found this bug, like, sort of incidentally by experiment, like, just seeing things in the log. So when I was, like, working on the split thinning, it essentially splits, you know, the render and the main process into two separate processes, but they need to communicate. And one of the problems is, like, the main process handles all the audio, like, you know, rendering audio, making sure, you know, like, it's properly mixed, spatialized, and so on. But video playback exists on the render side, which means like the render can like render the video texture, but we still need to take the audio and bring it back to the main process so it can mix it and play it. So I added a system that will just read all the audio data as fast as it can and put it into shared memory for the main process to like, you know, read and play back. Problem with that is like when I was like reading all the available data as fast as I could, I was getting slightly too much data. So like for a 40 kilohertz, you know, audio, I actually wrote a code to measure it. I would be getting like 50,000 samples per second. So like 50 kilohertz instead of 48. I was like, what is happening? And the effect of it was the audio would be just kind of, you know, constantly just trailing behind more and more. And it's like, why is that happening? So I was like playing around, I was logging things, and then I found like, oh, when I read all the audio data, so say for example, Unity says there's a 2,000 samples available. I read 2,000 samples, immediately after, like right the next call, there's gonna be 64 samples, and then there's gonna be 0 for a bit. So I was like, that's kind of weird. It's like there's like 64 samples just gonna appear out of nowhere. So I was like, what if I don't read all the audio data? So I leave a little bit in. So I would like leave like, I think I just said like 8 samples in or something. So I would like, if Unity told me there's 1,000 samples, you know, in the audio buffer, I would like read, like, you know, 992, essentially 1000 minus 8, and leave that 8. And that fixed the problem. It fixed, you know, some audio data just appearing magically out of nowhere, which on itself is already weird. So that on itself is already weird. But I was like, wait, it left like 64 samples like in afterwards. What if I leave exactly 64 samples in the buffer? So I just put like 64 instead of 8, and then it would just crash. It would immediately crash. Like Unity would just kind of like, you know, explode. So I was like, oh, that's weird. So like 64 like makes it explode. So like I would try leaving 65 or 63, and it was fine. Either of them was fine. It wouldn't crash. It would work normally. If I read the audio data and I leave exactly 64 samples in the buffer unread, Unity will crash. So whatever whatever like you need to do, like we cannot leave 64 samples in the buffer. It always needs to be like a different number from that, and also cannot be 0 because that also messes it up. And I realized that was probably responsible, that like before splitting, that was probably responsible for a good number of crashes from the video playback, because like with the previous system, the reads were sort of semi-random, so like they would sometimes randomly, conceivably end up leaving 64 samples in the audio buffer, and 64 samples in the audio buffer will always crash Unity. At least the version we're using, it'll always crash it, and that's probably one of the like weirdest things. So there.
That's
That's the one I remember.
It's very interesting you mentioned that 900 like 80, 960-ish number, because like that's like the quant size for my for like some of my like programs on my computer, like how much their buffer size is.
Oh, that was just a random number, like as an example.
Okay.
It's very unlikely gonna be like it's gonna be however much data. It's just kind of picking the round number because it's easier to demonstrate things with it.
Can I give my own story for this question?
Yes.
So a while back, Froox had me on this. Did you? Oh no, that's the floor. Sorry. Froox had me on this issue with Protoflux. In this particular world called vector spaces, I think it was.
Oh yes.
And from like when it was converted from like old Logic's code, it seemed to stop working and would cause a stack overflow exception or some kind of overflow exception when you ran it. And so I was like looking at it for like a week because it's for someone's like old PhD thesis project or whatever, so it's probably good to preserve it. And I spent a week like testing this world and like going through and looking at the code, and I even set up like my own like custom like headless restarter so I could keep restarting the world and like step through it with a debugger. And I eventually found that this world was so they weren't using the node language like how most of us use it today. They were actually taking parts of like the node structure and duplicating it, which would cause it to like connect itself to itself while it was running and self-modify, which worked in Logix because it was all the nodes used to evaluate one by one, like naively, instead of building like an execution stack. But with Protoflux, also thank you for the prime. With Protoflux, you can't do that because what it does is for every Protoflux group, it will calculate like the proper stack size needed to store like the like local variables and stuff and whatnot. And so what would happen is this world would duplicate a piece of code with a dynamic impulse. So it would go through the dynamic impulse, it would duplicate the code, but then like I think when it like came out of the dynamic impulse, since the code had attached itself while like in flight, it caused the Protoflux group to rebuild while the code was running for some reason. And so the stack size ended up being wrong because there was more locals now in the actual in the code tree. So it was a case of like self-modifying code that like duplicated parts of the thing that like connected itself to other parts of the code. And it was just this horrifying like amalgamation. It felt like some kind of like organism almost in terms of like how the program ran. It was scary. We eventually fixed the problem. Froox like made it not do that anymore, but that's like the weirdest bug I ever encountered.
Yeah, those things can get really weird. It reminds me of the one with like the Pilk machine, but I cannot want to hold it too much on this question anymore.
Yeah.
BD_ is asking, what specific goals do you have in mind for strike pose? Are there specific issues you're trying to scratch there? I mean, the main goal is like make IK better, essentially. So I'm just gonna overall goal is just better IK than we have right now. Resolve a lot of the kind of common problems, you know, like when with posing the avatars, and that's what when you're using full body, making sure it feels good. Which is like kind of weird call, like, you know, to define because there's no like technical definition, but like, you know, I use full body a lot, and you know, oftentimes like it cannot feel as good as it, you know, should. So the primary goal is to make it feel good, especially when you're also using full body. The other sort of problems that are sort of like, you know, sub goals are having our own custom system, just, you know, like one we control. So there's also more kind of it better kind of integrates, you know, with Resonite. Like it's more kind of idiosyncratic, like, you know, I cannot talk today. Idiosyncratic with, like, you know, how Resonite kind of works, because the current one, it's like a port, it's not been designed for how Resonite works, it's kind of like janky, you know, in some ways. So making sure it works right, like it's well designed, and it's much easier to work with. It's like, you know, just generally easier to set up avatars and just mess with it. The other sub goal is also, like, you know, a lot of the components. For example, there's gonna be, like, you know, fabric solver. Expose those as individual components, so you can just, you know, make like a chain and, like, you know, have it like be posed and use it for whatever else you want to use. There's another kind of sub goal, you know, adding kind of more tooling, adding more kind of control. Another one actually, and I forgot to mention this one during the initial announcement, is I think we can actually squeeze more performance improvements from it as well. Because I do want to like make it do like all the computations in parallel, similar way like dynamic bones work. And that I think, like, especially with bigger worlds, should help us get a little bit more, like, you know, performance out of it too. So, and also, like, another one is also just adding more flexibility, so it's kind of easier to set up stuff, you know, like multiple arms, multiple legs, just generally adding more kind of components, you know, for people to like build all kinds of crazy and cool avatars. But the primary goal is make the avatar, make the like IK feel good when you use it. I'm gonna get all the subscriptions from Bitter Score, thank you again. Computer is asking, do you have any pointers on getting rendered Unity project attached to Resonite? I'm asking because I want to see if I can bash my skull against Unity hard enough. Ooh, thank you, Jack. Hard enough to get dynamic occlusion calling to work. Having the render in editor attached to Reso could help with debugging it. I don't remember from the top of my memory, unfortunately. I would have to kind of check. Let me see, actually. Because I don't know if it's specifically for debug mode or no. Because I have a thing that, like, because it starts like listening, on like a port for, and then it will automatically attach itself, but it might require specifically like debug mode, which might require a GitHub issue. I am looking now.
I do think I recall it being behind a debug conditional for the compilation, but
yeah, if it is, I mean, we could probably make like a GitHub issue, and like I think we could just expose that one, so it's like a command line thing instead. Oh my god, Visual Studio's being slow.
Good old Visual Studio. It's time to switch.
Yeah, I wanna switch, but writers paid.
I wish more IDEs had like integrated solution management and stuff that like Visual Studio has.
Okay, I'm looking at it now. So actually, I wonder if I got moved out. Descriptor. Oh, this is no, this is wrong one. Render system. Oh my god, this hurts. Render system. Debug render. Oh yeah, it's yeah, it is currently under a thing, so yeah, like you would need to make like a GitHub issue for us to expose it because it's currently behind a compilation, like define, like a conditional compilation. But we could turn it into like an arguments. Okay. Let's see. Angel, we're Schnuppington? We're not doing those. I don't even know like how to interpret that.
Either Schnuppet or whatever the other one is.
Kosod was asking, what's your favorite tractor? I don't know. I don't have any favorites. I know somebody who like knows a bunch of tractors, but I don't know them myself. Zerovox VR is asking, for the local, are multi-language translations allowed, assuming each commit is properly separated? I don't know what you mean by that. Like, what is like a multi-language translation? Like, you can translate multiple languages, but each language should be its own pull request. Good more beginners, good, thank you. Navy 3001 is asking, when the new IK arrives, will a new full body calibrator come with it? No. Like, generally when we release things, we don't like block releasing things depending on other things if those things are not needed for the thing to work. So the new IK, it doesn't need the new full body calibrator to work, meaning like, you know, there's no point like delaying it artificially until we work more on the full body calibrator. So once the IK is ready, it's gonna go out, and we're probably gonna, you know, work on the calibrator afterwards. But there's like there's no point like delaying the IK until the full body calibrator is also done, because people can start using the new IK, which even with the existing calibrator should work way better. And then like, you know, we make tweaks or whatever changes needed to the full body calibrator afterwards, but we're not gonna like, you know, artificially delay releasing the IK for another feature. Video is asking, the render update has been in requirements gathering for quite some time now. Do you have some thoughts on when things will move on to phase 2? So currently the plan is like I want to go through all the things and like merge them in, all the comments, as soon as I can. It's been kind of difficult because there's just so many things happening, but I want to go through it, like update the document, and then I'm going to make an announcement where we're essentially going to close it, like say in 2 weeks from the time of announcement. And we're going to make a big announcement, making sure that you know, people have like some more time to kind of look into it, get more like feedback, and then we're going to close the phase 1. One of the reasons also, like we open source the render, is so it can actually serve as a reference for people to look, you know, how it works, and it can help compiling the requirements. So if you want to help us like progress it as fast as possible, please take a look at it, you know, open source render, look at the things, see if there's like anything that is missing from the document. There's actually one more thing I'm gonna mention is like, it's very important because like sometimes I see like people have like lots of discussions about the requirements for render, like, you know, in some side channels like Discord, but it doesn't go into the, you know, GitHub thing. And if you want to progress it, like you need to put it into the GitHub thing. Like we're not gonna be like monitoring like, you know, like discussions elsewhere. So that's another thing that can like help make it progress, like, you know, faster. Make sure like whatever, like if you find something, for example, people are working custom renders, you find something that should be a requirement, please put it in the GitHub issue. Granny K is asking, what would you think about someone making a Resonite style-inspired game, basically following Rezo in game editing style, with game editing and programming? Because I was thinking of something like that with Beve and Rust. Good luck. It's one of the things. Like, so the thing about Resonite is like, it's not like just a game. Like, to make a lot of the stuff that Resonite can do possible, like, I pretty much had to like build a novel game engine from scratch, or largely from scratch. So I don't think you can take like an existing game engine and just bludgeon it into something like Resonite. Like it's not gonna be cohesive enough for like this level of complexity, which is like what Resonite kind of does. It kind of changes the whole paradigm on how how this is kind of coded and structured architecturally. So you need to think about it less as making a game and more like making an engine and then building the game on top of it. And it is a pretty big undertaking because like you can't like reuse a lot of the systems that already exist. You kind of have to build a lot of stuff from scratch, and that takes time. Nukikun's asking, what can we do right now and in the near future to help you get the new render worked on? What about wanted features like AK inventory, compare search, etc.? How can we contribute to getting things done quickly? It kind of depends for the things. So the render, like I mentioned, engage with the GitHub issue. Like part of the reason it slowed down is because like a lot of interactions with it slowed down. So if you wanted to progress faster, interact with that issue, please. That one's kind of gonna help, and it's gonna help us kind of get more comfortable moving to the next stage. For some other stuff like IK inventory, component search, it kind of depends. Like some of those, like it's mostly just kind of priorities, so like you might not be able to help too much. If you want to look for features that like you as community can help with, we actually have community help welcome tag on the GitHub on our GitHub. So search for issues with that tag and you can see which issues you can help us with. Because not everything like you can directly help, but we're trying to make it so you can help us with more. Part of it is, for example, the render, like why we open sourced it. It helps community contribute like, some improvement fixes, help us with those certain things. Same, for example, the Unity SDK. The idea of the Unity SDK is like, we build the basis of it and then people can help us expand it, add more kind of conversion systems, add more like, meat to it. So there's things like that where you can do a lot to help moves us forward. If you also help us with those, for example, if you help us with Unity SDK, that means we can actually spend more focus, on stuff that right now people can help with, like like for example IK inventory rework. So by helping with things we need help with, you free us to have more time for the things that like we can't easily incorporate help with. But even for stuff like IK, we actually have a discussion for it. We're asking for feedback, we're asking for information, so doing that also helps. Just be on the lookout for like our announcements, be on the lookout for GitHub discussions, and please, actually, one of the most important things, please read like what we ask for help with, because we oftentimes like find people want to help, but they don't help with things we need help with, and they try to help with things where we don't have like a good way to help, and that kind of ends up doing more harm than doing good. So if you do want to help, like we appreciate it, but you also need to help us with the things we need help with, and we oftentimes will be like clear about like what we need help with. Next question from Nikikun. Advice on putting a HUD in front of player's view. Is there a good way to do it? We are thinking of even requesting feature like that. Depends whether you mean like in private, like user space, because there's like a facet anchor for it, or if you mean on the avatar. If it's just on the avatar, just put an object that's just rendered like locally. Like I don't think there's like you need a new feature, because it's just the HUD is just an object that's in front of them. So
well, there's the issue of it being occluded by world objects and not having its own dedicated render layer, so you can't really make like a 2D HUD for desktop users, for example.
And we can make overlay shaders, but they would need like we would need to clarify like what exactly one thing, because like HUD can mean a lot of different things, and so if you want to clarify, you can. Sans Serigato is asking, I've prepared a question I was going to ask in Discord because it's too long for Twitch, but I see the chat was locked. It was supposed to be from stream stars. Can I still send it? Where? I mean, right now you can only send in Twitch. Depending how long it is, we might not read like the whole thing. Like if it's like really long, like please don't send us like paragraphs and paragraphs of the thing. I'll probably start like see if there's like a way to kind of ask this question like much more kind of simply. And maybe like work for there, like like if you like we can always ask like clarifying questions afterwards. Otherwise like you have to like wait for the next office hours, so like there's gonna be another thread for the one for that's gonna be for next week. But just fair warning, like if it's like extremely long, like we might just skim it. Nukikon's asking, are you sure people are actually complaining about a thing now, then complaining about it being removed later, and not just that a subset is complaining, another subset is happy? That can be a big problem with going entirely by user feedback. I don't quite understand what you mean. Like, but like we don't go entirely by user feedback. Like we kind of weigh things, with different stuff. So I don't know. There's always gonna be like people who are gonna be happy with something and not happy with something else. So that's also a factor. Things. Ozzy's asking, has there been a bug fix that you didn't do much of but had massive positive reaction from the community for? Yes, there's been a few. I remember that kind of happening with some things where like I've like fixed something and people were like super happy about it, but I don't know if I can remember a specific one. I don't know if I can remember any. I don't remember.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't like remember it happening in the past, but I don't remember in a specific one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we asked for this one while we were like working on the platform, but like the ability to move components by just dragging and dropping them. Oh yeah. That like revolutionized the way that you think about like how to manage like your slots and stuff and your components.
But that one, like, I knew, like, that's gonna be huge.
Yeah,
so
like that.
This is more like for ones that, like, I didn't think much of.
That's the only one I can actually think of that even remotely comes close.
That's quite not quite it. It's more like...
Oh, yeah, I know.
So, give me a second. I need to, like, drink some water. I'm, like, really dry.
Froox needs to drink water, otherwise he will turn into a... Froox raisin. He'll become a prune. And also doing extreme yoke. This is what happens when you don't drink water, by the way. You turn into this. This happens. Oh, see? He drank some water and now he's fine. He's no longer droopy.
Okay. I was getting really dry.
I was telling chat that this is what happens when you don't drink water when you were like drooped over. Then you came back and you're fine because you drank water.
Huh?
Because you like drooped over because you weren't drinking water like a plant.
Oh yeah. A plant. Ozzy's asking, very off topic from Mirza, have you watched Project Hail Mary yet? What do you think of it? I haven't yet. I'm kind of waiting for it to come on some kind of streaming service or something because, like, I don't know how else to watch it otherwise. Like, I don't really have anybody here like to go with, like the cinema with. Yamid was asking, which other VR games did you like, specifically single-player ones? So single-player, like, I mean, I feel it's almost kind of... I don't know what word for it. cliche. But like
Cliche.
But the Half-Life Alyx, like I mean, it's an excellent VR game, and it's Half-Life. So if you're going like one that can also have multiplayer, I would say like Minecraft, like Minecraft in VR. It's a lot of fun. I love playing it in VR.
I never really played it myself, but I always really liked to see people play Echo Arena back in the day. And it's such a shame because it's no longer around because they killed the servers for it and they didn't open source them as far as I know. So you can't. That's like such a historic and also apparently was a very fun VR game.
Games.
That I would have probably tried to play maybe one day, but I now can't because it's gone.
I mean, I did ask for single player once, anyways.
I know, but I mean, I guess it's single player now.
Ozzy's asking, Sarah, from my understanding, Froox usually throws issues to solve fix. If you could throw Froox at one issue feature, what do you ask for?
Well, let me think about this.
Oh no.
I want... Give me fixed point precision data types. That's what I want.
I'll give you the 128 with integers.
Actually, yeah, give me those and I'll be happy. It would be nice to have actual fixed point data types, but that's a good compromise.
I mean, the problem with actual fixed point data types is like you can have like a lot.
I know you can have
depending
a lot of
like how you want
precisions.
to partition it, yeah. Angel Boy is asking, I'm curious about how the transition into the new IK system is going to work. I understand if you don't know yet since it's still in development, but will transition to the new IK be seamless or is it a place without us noticing, much like Photon does, or will we need confirmation on our side, or do we have to remake our avatars to enjoy the new IK? So there's likely gonna be like a conversion thing. The way it's probably gonna work is we're actually gonna introduce the new IK to exist alongside the old IK, so you can start testing it, experimenting with it. But like for the time being, everything's still gonna be set up with old IK until it sort of stabilizes and is good enough. There's also gonna be like a button that converts the old IK into the new system, so you can test the conversion process itself. So we can both be testing the new IK. If you really want to start using it early, you can convert the avatar, fix up whatever issues, start using it, assuming you're okay with things potentially breaking. So they're for the time being, they're gonna exist next to each other. Once the conversion system is good enough, and once the IK new itself is good enough, we're gonna remove the old one and have the conversion happen automatically. There's probably gonna be some edge cases which might not convert right. But generally, the idea is we have avatar, it should generally mostly kind of work the same, except kind of behave better. So yeah, that's pretty much the plan for it. BD underscores asking, is replacing avatar creator part of the IK project, or is this something further down the line? That's further down the line, the avatar creator's avatar creator, it's not the IK. The only thing we're gonna swap is which IK gets initialized with avatar creator, but that's that's about it. Otherwise it's just one separate project. So we tend to not to move too many projects into one, because then everything will take forever to do, because your one project becomes multiple projects and becomes really difficult to handle. Check the Fox authors asking, what are your plans for eventual inspector rework? I'm often stumbling into situations where I wish I had searching to find their place, for example, rename dynamic variables. But are there any other things you'd like to change on a more fundamental level? So the core thing is it's gonna be based on data feeds. So like a lot of the UI is actually gonna be data feed based. You can have multiple data feeds. There's gonna be like ones for the hierarchy. There's gonna be ones for the the actual individual fields and lists and other stuff. So that's gonna be the core of it. It's gonna make it also like so those individual UI pieces are better. With data feeds, there's also gonna support like searching, so you can kind of filter things, you can search them. It's gonna be another big part. And there's of course like sort of expansion systems. Another part it's gonna use is actually the inspector UI is also gonna be composed from multiple kind of components that will link between themselves. Like for example, the scene hierarchy, there's gonna be its own facet. The actual component viewer, that's gonna be its own facet. And you can actually build your own inspector by adding like even more to the system. So if you want to have, for example, some processing options or some additional systems, and there's a way to like sort of dynamically link them to each other. So for example, like, something like the currently selected slot will just become, like a dynamic variable that you can have like your own pieces of UI to listen to. And like once the core is gonna like rework this way, we can start like also adding more functionality. We can start expanding it. I want to introduce more systems where components can specify kind of custom inspectors for things, helpers, just generally make things overall like better. Computer user, which repository should I make it hub issue for exposing a compilation value thing? The regular Resonite issues repo or Android unit repo or Android repo? Do the Resonite one, normal Resonite repo, because that actually has to be done on Froox engine side. Angel Boy Viewer is asking, does Resonite support pirate language? If not, when? I don't know what pirate language is exactly, it's just speaking like pirates, I guess.
I guess it's like the pirate language in Minecraft, like you can switch to.
Oh yeah. I mean, the local repo is public, so if anybody wants to make it, they can.
If you want to go for it.
There, Pumpkin is asking, Chess Battle Advanced? I don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
Probably just something in the chat.
Xerox, this is what I'm referring to. Can a merge request contain multiple languages, or does every language need its own? They need to be separated. One language per pull request, please. Nukikun is asking, would it help to give you the feedback of I have read this and looks good? Are you just looking for confirmation? You are missing big things. Depends. I don't know, like, what do you... Depends. Put like in GitHub issue. Like if you have like any resources, you can like link them up and such. Generally, don't just say like I've read like things, or like if you read about something that might like help, like please include like links, because that's usually the hardest thing. Is like if it's too vague, like it's not gonna be too helpful. But if there's like a link, then I can like read the resource myself and help. Nokikon, that was for render GitHub issue. I mean, if you're just gonna say like it looks okay, like maybe let's not particle it. Like we're more looking like for things that like didn't need to be changed. Oh no, we're getting more. Heko is asking schnoplunks.
If you guys are gonna ask Schnoppet or Typonks questions, just ask Schnoppet or Typonks, because we don't really know how to respond to these.
Well, speaking of computers, it is asking Schnoppet.
My Schnoppet is when people do that.
I do have one, maybe. So there's like one thing that kind of bugs me sometimes. Is like, I've noticed it like with some people where, there's like some people who like play Resonite, like enjoy it a lot, they'll spend a lot of time in here, and then for some reason they will stop playing. But instead of like just being like maybe they don't enjoy it like anymore, it's like some people have to like go scorched earth and just make Resonite be like the worst thing, you know, under the sun, like, you know, and like, and just kind of forget, like, you know, all the kind of good stuff and all the stuff that kind of enjoy it. And I genuinely don't like that kind of like mindset. Like, it's very kind of, because I feel it's natural, like, you know, like sometimes like you just, you know, you play a game for a while, and then just kind of, you know, it doesn't work for you anymore, which is natural, that happens, that's understandable. But to then go and, you know, be like, this is the worst going on under the sun, this is like, you know, the thing, and just going like complete like nuclear on it, like, it's kind of like, it feels like unnecessary, and it feels like it just kind of like it feels like the person is like needing to justify to themselves why they like stop playing it. And I don't I just didn't get like that kind of mindset, and I found it kind of like unpleasant. Especially also like because sometimes there's people like, you know, I still know, people like, you know, who I was like friends with, and now like it feels because, you know, they don't like certain things, like now, like, you know, because of those, they like, you know, they just suddenly hate us. And it's like it can be kind of painful at times, because now, like, you know, like it also makes me worry with, like, you know, some people where I'm like, if they run into bugs with Resonite and I'm not able to like fix those bugs, like, you know, at least not in time, they'll, you know, turn nuclear and, like, you know, lose them as a friends as well, because of the bug fixes, and it kind of sucks. And I wish like more people would be able to have like a mindset that like it's okay to, you know, stop playing something without having to, like, you know, just suddenly go completely hateful on it. So I guess that's kind of my snippet. Yeah, I'm saying, like, I'm not saying it's everyone, but there's definitely like some experiences I've had like that.
Yeah, it's. I would say I mostly just am tending to agree with you there. You don't gotta go super scorched earth and just like. I've just seen like some people leave and then like suddenly we're like the biggest baddest villains in all of history and ruin their life or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the part I don't get. Like the part, like, if there's like something and, like, you know, that just genuinely don't enjoy playing it anymore, like that one I can get. But like turn it, like, just turning into like as into villains and like the worst thing under the sun, it's kinda like, I don't know. But that's my snippet. Oh my god. Gray Foxen is asking, do you have a favorite word in sign language? Yes. It's this, but it's very... Guess what this one means. I'm gonna give Chad like a little bit, like, Chad, what do you think this means? I'm gonna grab a Gray Fox, and also you can't say because, you know. I'm gonna grab a brush so I can write it down. So this is a sign that means this. You're welcome. I had a friend teach me that one. No, that's my favorite. I'm actually not really classifies as a word, but that's my favorite sign because it's just, it's like once you know it, it's so goofy, it's so funny. Qualitorium is asking, any significant outstanding concerns or areas we'd like to see tested more deeply on the ongoing Soundflow pre-release? I know there's a few pre-filled pre-release bugs. I'm doing a bit more testing this weekend. Pretty much the stuff that's mentioned in the GitHub issue. Please, or specifically the GitHub discussion, please read the GitHub discussion. Like, a lot of people like jump into testing without actually reading it, and that kind of can it can do more like harm than it does good. So please read it. Please read like we put like what we are looking for in there. Wilson's skipped one. Angel Boy is asking, I want to support and help with a new IK system, but I have no idea how. For someone who isn't technically minded, what is the most helpful thing that non-technical being like me can provide in that matter? Again, that's actually going to be in the discussion. There's instructions, for example, providing a sample avatar, sample rigs, stuff like that. Providing us, like, what's your wish list, like things you would like to see, what are the issues you have with it. So those are, things that will help. Once it's also in testing phase, helping to test it, if you have full body, if you have lots of different avatars, throwing it at them, that will help. So like be on the lookout for our posts. I'm probably gonna make like an announcement like once it's kind of ready for some of the testing, so keep a lookout on that one. It's probably gonna be a lot of testing with like users and all kinds of different avatars to report bugs and issues and such. This seems like an in-chat question. BD underscores asking, did you ever get Steam Frame Dev Kit? Unfortunately not. I don't think like we'll probably get it at this point. I know somebody like who actually tried Resonite with a Steam Frame, and it seems to work, so at least like it won't be completely broken, but it definitely like it's one of those things is like we're not like the biggest platform, but at the same time, like, I wouldn't say like we're the smallest. And we've been around for like, a very long time, like doing VR for a very long time. And somebody actually pointed this to me, is like, on the Steam database, if you look at the VR titles, there's, top 100 like VR titles. And like we're pretty much like in there, like, consistently, just based on number of concurrent players. And that even includes like huge like AA titles that do have like a VR mode in them. So if you're like, in the top 100 and we can't like get a dev kit, it's, I don't know, part of it's like, it seems that like all of the ways you get these dev kits is like you happen to know someone, like, or have like know a person or know a person who knows a person, so it's like less actually based on, what you're doing and what your platform is, and more like, what contacts you have, which is how sometimes things seem to work in this industry, but it's unfortunate. Yeah. Nikki can obviously need some far enough away in VR that they don't make you cross-eyed to look at. How do you suggest not doing that? We got stuff set up for it with few nodes, but it seems we don't necessarily have a good way to do it. We're talking about making a feature request. I mean, if like being cross-eyed to look at is the problem, then we need to fix that. I know there's an issue for it, so make sure to give that one a upvote, maybe even provide like information that this is like interfering with some of the content you're making. Generally, you should not be making feature requests to work around bugs, like we should be addressing those bugs and issues directly.
I think they mean in regards to the UI thing?
I think so, like they had. Yeah, like if that's like what the problem is with it, like, generally don't make feature requests that work around other bugs and features, so it needs to be addressed directly. Sansariga's asking, for instance, When enumerating all users and handling button click, it seems forced as only solution to transfer execution flow to other users. I feel very wrong relying on users adding themselves to the list by duping slots outside of their avatar. It's good to have distributed compute by default. Behind that is not being able to keep compute or the side of one user. How would it work with hard permission system? I don't quite like. It feels like there's like a bunch of context that I'm kind of missing on this question. Like I don't quite understand what you're asking, sir. Like you can, like if you want, you can keep compute on the side of one user, so like you can do things on specific user, just don't transfer the flow to another user.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're like asking like for a cleaner way to execute code on another user than like having them listen for data model changes or something. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, like I kind of feel like it just kind of like this question is like second half of something where I haven't seen the first part, so I don't know how to answer this. I'm sorry. You might need to kind of clarify. Computer user is asking, did you enjoy the Biases VR stress test? That was kind of interesting experience. I kind of like ended up like dying like halfway through it though. But it was, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, how tests gonna go, and it's one of the reasons you test things as well. And Sarah was there too, actually, and
Yeah,
as well like as a few other team members.
Yeah, I went to check it out. There was a lot of people, so of course it was a little bit laggy. I think they're trying their best to fight Unity on that though. So I wish them luck because they seem like nice people.
Yeah, like I know like Dooley and like they were very nice and friendly person. And they were kind of invited like us and like the rest of the team for the test. It was kind of cool. Like, and like the number of people like that was there was kind of impressive. It was like seeing a huge crowd, like just people everywhere, was like very fascinating.
Yeah, from one digital universe to another, you got this, guys.
Actually, I was gonna also mention like one of the things is like since like, you know, they're open source, what actually told me like they end up like using some of our open source libraries, which made me like really happy. Like for example the iron noise, and they actually want to contribute like back like some improvements as well. So like it's really cool like what those guys are doing overall, and they kind of like, you know, whole approach like to things, just making like cool the VR space better.
It's always cool to see other people use your things.
And then we can use theirs.
Yeah.
There's some of them. Angel Boy VR is asking, speaking of how long things are going to take, any rough guesstimation how long until IK will be done, or at least just a stable state? Very rough guess is totally fine. I don't know. I mean, I start like, so I've been like doing like research on it, but I kind of wanted to dive into it like deeper, like earlier this week. Ooh, thank you for the raid. I wanted to like dive into it like deeper, and then like other stuff started happening. Like I had to like deal with people not being able to launch Resonite, and you know, a bunch of other things. So that's kind of how things go, unfortunately. We just kind of don't like making like guesstimates. Qualitron was asking favorite pizza flavor. Oh, I probably like
American?
One that has like, no, not that one. I mean, that one's favorite for different reasons. I usually like for actual pizza, like I like one that's like pepperoni on it, and mushrooms. I like mushrooms and tomato sauce and cheese.
I like pepperoni, mushroom. I'm a basic Martin.
Yes. Bravo Jules Bear is asking, does Froox have his own clip channel in the Resonite Discord ranks? I don't know, what? Was a clip channel?
I don't know, clips for like funny clips of you, I guess, like videos.
Oh, I don't know. We have to look. Defhammer's asking, Since open sourcing the render and Resonite SDK, what are your thoughts and feelings on the community involvement so far? Any surprises, either positive or negative? I would say so far it feels pretty positive. One of the things is like, the open sourcing, we actually like end up like upgrading the Amplify occlusion shader, and actually it seemed to introduce a bug like that's like present in the newer version. And before I even had like, chance to like look at it, like there was Zyro who looked into it and contributed a fix, and I was like, yay, let's work for me.
That's sorry. Just to clarify, that's a Zyro with a Z, not a C.
Oh yeah, not this Zyro, the Zyro. And it's kind of like, it's like, what's the word? I mean, there's also like people who've been kind of like, looking into like, beginning out to C++ to work, which is like one of those things like, and I'm like banging my head against it, and like I got to the stage where I'm like, I don't want to be banging my head against this. I want to work on other things. And now this kind of like, people are figuring out like, how to compile it, and maybe they'll give us more performance boost, which is like also an awesome thing. So like so far it's been very positive, and we also have like with the Unit SDK, Popular is making like PR that like converts like Poyome, which is like a huge like 6,000 line like conversion system, like which like I would also have to like bang my head against it for a while, and now I can focus on other things and get help with things. So far it's been like helping quite a bit, because like it like allows to like make improvements to Resonite for the community in some areas, and that actually gives me focus on some areas where like those contributions are not possible, at least not right now. So generally pretty positive so far, and kind of makes me more excited, because like I can literally be like, this is somebody else's problem now, because I have like oftentimes like I just end up feeling like I have like so many problems, like just gonna go somewhere to the sky, and there's just so many to deal with. So if I can like take a chunk of them and be like, okay, this is somebody else's problem now, then it helps a lot. Like just gonna ease some of the pressure on things and make things like move faster and give people like more control over this platform, and more direct way to sort of like improve the experience for everyone.
Poplar clarifies 600, I think, not 1,000, but happy to help at my scale.
No, it was definitely... Oh, that's very about 6,000 lines of code. I need to look at the PR now.
Who's correct? You decide. Or put in your votes. You win nothing if you're wrong or right.
Okay, I'm opening it now. Oh, it is almost 6,000.
Oh. Like, I think it says it. They think it counts all the meta files and such when it's counting.
Oh, okay. Still, I was just almost 6,000 there, so this is where it's going right.
It looks good on your GitHub profile.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those things. Sometimes I make like I make commits, and like a lot of it's like auto-generated code, so it's gonna be like 100,000 lines, 60,000 lines, and it's like a huge changelog. But I'm like, I want to change a few things, like not that many, but it's just it looks funny in the changelog. But then there are actually some scary commits where it'll be like a lot of the code. Like there's been some projects where genuinely like I did modify that amount of lines of code, like moving or deleting some systems, and those are scary ones. But they usually take a while.
I've seen like those like that like GitHub tree video where like you just explode like a massive part of the tree and it like evaporates off of the engine.
Sometimes they happen because like some of the changes are like global like search and replace too, so like that kind of modifies a lot of things at once. But yeah, very positive so far. Computer user, I've seen you mention frustrations of people asking technical work-related questions when you're in a public world. Have you considered putting a large sign above your head that says, "Don't ask any technical questions about Resonate or specific GitHub issues, wait for resonance," or having some kind of no tolerance policy for those questions for the sake of your mental health. I don't know if that would work, because like sometimes like, you know, it's a world and like it has a sign like don't bring work into this world, and people still end up like doing it sometimes. So, and I don't want to be like, you know, walking with like a giant like just flashing sign. So
Yeah,
probably
I mean,
not that one.
sometimes it's worth it to like over like the last few years I've had to practice like, you know, kind of confronting people in the moment, because not a lot of people do that. And if somebody is like doing something that like annoys me, or like that, for example, like they come up to me and they're like, Sarah, I found this bug, look at it. And I'm like just trying to relax. I'll be like, dude, I really don't want to look at this right now. Or like, you know, like don't, you know, come at me with this like all the time in game just because like I'm a dev, please. Just treat me like a normal person. I don't want to look at GitHub issues all the time while I'm playing Resonite. I just want to play Resonite.
That's actually what I do too, is like sometimes people will be like, oh, like there's this bug, like, you know, like I'm trying to bring like to their awareness and stuff, and I'm like, that it needs to go to GitHub, and but sometimes people just keep going. They'll be like, you know, what's this thing? I'm like, that should go to GitHub, please put that in GitHub, and they're just gonna keep going, and it's just, some people will not kind of get it, I think. So I don't think like, you know, the flashing sign would like help anymore.
Yeah, if you come at me with this stuff in game, I'm just going to tell you to not come at me with this stuff in game right then and there. That's just kind of like, I think that's probably the best way to go about that.
Modify Arc is asking, is there a compilation guide for Bubblite? There's not. It's not ready for any use. Like, it's not complete yet. Debubblite, for context, it's a project I'm working as my fun project, like the creative one. I'm right now only working on it on Fridays. And what's essential, what it's gonna do is like, it's gonna be able to like, you know, transcribe people's audio in game. So like it's gonna be like a server that you can like, you know, run on your computer, either on the same computer or on different computers on the network. And when Resonite detects it, it's gonna connect to it, and it's gonna be able to send like voice data to it, so it can transcribe it and you can see what people are saying. And that's gonna help like with a lot of things. So for example, you know, people who are like hearing impaired can be able to like, you know, tell what people are saying in the world. But also it's gonna help like, you know, with cross like, you know, culture and language communication, because once you transcribe the text, it can also be translated. So for example, you know, people from Japanese community, they can be talking Japanese and you'll be seeing what they're saying in English, you know, how to translate it, which not gonna be perfect, but better than nothing. And vice versa, you can be talking in English and it's gonna be translating it for them to you know, to Japanese. And then we can also build like other things, you know, on top of that, like, you know, for example, doing voice commands. So like you like say something and it gets you then text back and you can do whatever you want with it. So I think it's gonna be a very powerful kind of tool, but it's not ready yet. Like, it's not functional, so there's like no instructions, like no nothing yet, because it's just not ready yet. It's heavy work in progress. Nerakix asking, did you get annoyed after playing Alex for a while that you cannot whip items into your hand IRL, annoying when VR has better UI than IRL? Yes. I mean, there's actually another thing that like annoys me that I can't do IRL, which is undo. And actually, I remember like one time I spilled like a glass of something, and my first instinct was to just go like open context menu and do like undo, but I'm like, wait, I can't do that for like in real life.
What? My buddy Gareth, when he first started playing, he played Resonite, or I guess back then Neos or whatever, like all day for like the first day that he tried it, like all day long. And then the next day when he woke up like with his like alarm, he like didn't even turn around, but like raised his hand to try and grab it with his laser and turn it off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you get kind of like mannerisms like that, and you just kind of wish it would translate. Another time I was like, I was actually meeting with somebody like in Prague, and like we went to like this place, and I was like, I kind of want to take like a group photo, and my instinct was to open my inventory and spawn the 360 camera, and I'm like, wait, I can't do that. I don't know what this...
I have a really long multi-part question that's kind of really hard to follow.
I mean, if you want to make feature requests, then probably make feature requests, but like, please keep it to like questions. Like, don't use the question mark thing just to kind of like say a whole bunch of stuff. Like, Moonbase asking, if you're in Deepest Cybercore world, when is the Fruit Teacher Auto Resonance? Sometime,
Now.
maybe? No, the Fruit Teacher Auto is a different world.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it is listed over there on the board. I see it now.
Yeah, it's
I
like,
just
it
saw
says
that.
it's inspired by this. Yeah, I like this
Okay,
world. Let me
okay.
actually do like third-person camera for a little bit. It's very bright
This
over
one
there,
is called
but
Cybercore, by the way.
there's like a thing here. It's very neat. Like, I like the aesthetic. It's very like distinct. And there's like a thing on top of here. You've got the Utah teapot. Like it's pouring. Everything's so shiny. Actually, this would have been an interesting spot for the stream too. But yeah, we're gonna go back to the original location. Actually, wait, where was the original? Oh, over there. Whoop. Yeah, it's a very cool world. I really like the aesthetic of it. Let's see. Angel Boy VR, question for both cabins. Favorite dish in general? I mean, it's one of those things, is like, I usually don't have like a single favorite. I'll have like, you know, different things that I like, and sometimes I'm in mood for different ones. It's just general dish. I would say like something rice-based. I mean, I don't like rice, potatoes, pasta. I like kind of simple foods.
Yeah, like
Fried rice, maybe.
I guess if you want like my like go-to foods, just because they're easy and taste good, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes you just can't beat like a good McDonald's cheeseburger. And also Chinese food. Chinese food is okay. I like chow mein and stuff.
Actual Chinese food or like Americanized?
It's I like both. I like both. I've had like not super sweetened Chinese food and also the Americanized Chinese food, and I like both.
Chinese food can be quite good. I just like lots of different foods. Like, I do like some Indian food too, because I don't like really eat much meat, and like a lot of Indian food, like it's vegetarian, and they can do really good vegetarian foods. So I like those as well. But yeah, I usually like simple foods. And pizza's good too.
Yeah.
There's a bunch like I like soups as well. I make soups. Actually, I'm soaking up some groats for a soup later.
Mmm.
Have you ever had is it groats? It is groats.
Nope.
Groat soup. I can actually show you a video. I made a video of it. I was making a groat soup, and people are like, "What are groats?" I can show you. Like, it's groats. I was making soup. This is soup with groats.
How to make the entire stream hungry.
Oh, I can do it. I have tons of 3D scans. But yeah, groat soup.
You need to make
I'm gonna have
spots in your
one.
food now.
I'm gonna have one in like 5-6 hours.
You just splat your soup.
But I'm hungry. Oh, I made a cursed thing. A few days ago, I lost my bowl that I use for soup. So I had to use what I had at hand, which is this, mug that I normally use for tea. And like, I put the soup in it, and it's just like, yeah, it looks like a brain in a jar or something. I was like, I kind of wanted to 3D scan it, but I was like way too hungry, so I didn't. But I could just redo it and 3D scan it, and then gonna have like a very cursed 3D scan. But I like soup. OpenStream is good as well. And now you can you know, suffer seeing this. I found a I haven't found the I found the ball since turned out like my brother like took it, so I have it now, so I don't have to like do this again.
I see.
We've got 20 minutes left. Sergey is asking, yeah, my question is just to compress for Twitch, let me ask in parts. I don't think it's possible to enumerate the list of all users in session without transferring execution flow to each of those users and having them add themselves to the list by duping user info slot. More generally, it felt to me that how Flex was designed, it heavily relies on cases like these being solved through distributed compute, but I see how it could be a problem in the future. What do you think? So it's not designed that way, it's just what people do. There's nothing fundamentally preventing Protoflex from just being able to enumerate users, other than like not having collection access right now. Once we introduce collections, you'll be able to get the user collection in the world and just iterate on them on a single user and just do whatever you want. So what you are doing is not, you know, that's not really the intentional way to do it. It's why you can do it, but it's not like, you know, specifically designed to do it that way. There is a way to like do things like right now is using the user data feed, because the user data feed actually lets you create a template for each user, and it can be anything. It doesn't even need to be UI. And you essentially for each of the template items you actually get a user. So the user data feed is a great way to do it if you want everything to happen on a single side, because that's gonna handle like, you know, the generation, like the life cycle of the items for you. So if you can use the user data feed, then I recommend using the user data feed. If not, you probably have to wait until like collection support, and then you can just loop through all the users. Next question is from Lake Tomato. Hello, is there other parts that will be open source, like importer or anything else? Yes, so the next two things I'm kind of looking at open sourcing is gonna be the device driver system. So making the drivers, you know, for devices, like, you know, like controllers and like lead motion and like whatever device you want to use with Resonite, make that open source and be it more modular. So like, you know, there's gonna be like a folder, and you essentially, like, you know, there's only when it starts, just loads the drivers from that, and source code for all of the drivers we have, we're just going to put them on GitHub so they can serve as a reference and allow community improvements and contributions. So there's going to be another part that's going to be open sourced. The other part is going to be the importer and exporter system. So it's going to kind of follow similar logic, where you can define you know, the importers, like for example importing model files and images and whatever formats, you can just define them as like, you know, modules. Resonite's going to pick them up, and we're also going to make the importers, you know, open source as well. So they can also receive community contributions, serve as a, you know, reference, because the device drivers, they're good like in a way because they don't affect the data model, so we don't have to worry about like, you know, users breaking compatibility with things, like at least breaking compatibility with content. And similar with importers only work, you know, when you actually do the import, and they essentially translate, you know, some data file or set of data files into like the data model. But once it's in data model, then like, you know, it's under control of the data model, the importer is kind of done. So those are like good things to like, you know, open without having to worry about like long-term compatibility for things. They're a bit more complicated to expose because they do have a lot of dependencies for like, you know, Froox engine assemblies. So we'll probably need to like provide like reference assemblies for those. We need to figure that out. We also need to rework those systems to be more modular. So there's a little bit more involved for open sourcing these, but probably like these two, either of these two is gonna be the next thing that we're gonna open source from Froox engine. And don't have any specific timeline, unfortunately, but those are gonna happen soon, like at some point. Scores asking, speaking of undo, have you played with the Jujutsu VCS? It's a big improvement over the gallery-based workflow. I haven't. Have you?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. Granik is asking, how hard is it for you to create data feed in C#? That completely depends on what the data feed is. So, yeah, it depends what the data feed is, like there's not a single answer to that. Navy 3001, does Resonite plan to add navmesh? So right now we don't have like specifically any plan. I don't know if there's a GitHub issue. If that's something you want to see, make sure there's a GitHub issue and make sure to upload it. If there's like more interest in it, like, you know, we're more likely to prioritize it. So it might gonna happen at some point, but like right now not to any specific plans. There's also somebody actually built navmesh completely in game. It was one of the MMC entries from like I think a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the Jib Forge, yeah, 24. They made the navmesh system. I'm gonna just make sure it shows on the camera. So check that one out. And it's completely built in game. And once you also have like collection support, like, you know, you'll be able to build your own, so there's also gonna be a possibility. But you can already make them, or just use that system, if it suits your needs. And there's actually all the questions we have right now from Twitch, so if you've got any more, we've got like 15 minutes left, so feel free to ask. I'm actually gonna take more water because I'm very dry again. I don't know why I'm so dry today.
Just don't ask like philosophy of like 10 paragraph philosophy of life of Resonite questions, because like now we're near the end. Also, Froox is this is again what happens when you don't drink water. You droop over like a plant.
Our turn.
You keep drooping over like a plant and then coming back up after you drink water.
Yes, I need water. I drank all my water, I don't have any more. I need to go to the kitchen for more. Get a new case asking, are you going to raid someone at the end of the stream? If anybody's streaming Resonite, then we will, yes. So if you're thinking about streaming Resonite, now is a good time to start. Get a have you ever used Git work trees? Forget which are work trees.
I have also never used those.
I don't think I did, unless I'm confusing with something else. Angel Boy VR, what is the philosophy of Resonite? Don't skip the question. We should already have a video clip for this one. Yeah. So go watch that one. Go on our YouTube channel and watch it. Sansorgo. Okay, data feeds for user list sounds way better. What about click handling? Right now, button handle flags can only run on the side of the person that clicked, and you get that user as local user. But I think it would be much better to allow owner of the button, for example, user wearing an avatar, to handle it. Is this intended or missing feature to have button event separation between handling user and clicker user? So if you want the immediate event, that happens on the user because the user is clicking the button. But also, with buttons, you actually get like data, like when the button's being clicked and so on. So you could, like, you know, hook into that data and just, like, you know, have the host or whoever you want monitor the logic. So there's like ways to do both. But the button events, they happen immediately on the user because the user is the one actually doing the interaction. So if you want to just react to the click, that actually gets put into the data model, so you need to react to those data model changes. Modify Onyx is asking, how far can you inspect inside the game until you find the code of the Froox engine itself? I don't know what it means.
I don't think you can. I don't think the inspector. The inspector is the code of the game. It can't inspect. It can't. It's like trying to. It's like trying to ask if I use a magnifying glass, will I eventually see the magnifying glass? You know, like.
Yeah, that's kind of why the question doesn't make too much sense to me. You might need to clarify what you mean. Oops. Alright, Moonclaw is asking, what is the meaning of flux? Spaghetti makes the world go brr.
Yes. Well said.
Bravo Jules Bear is asking, favorite dance music genre? I don't know if I have like specifically dance music genre.
I don't know, EDM, I guess. Like
yeah, some kind of EDM. Like I don't specifically like listen to like dance genre. Okay, work trees are where you have multiple branches checked out at once. Yeah, I haven't used that. I usually just switch branches.
Yeah.
Computer users asking, assuming it breaks no content, would more performance improvements to the render, like dynamic occlusion culling feature I mentioned, be accepted? This is duplicate ask because I forgot that question. Oh, that's fine. So I would say tentatively yes. So usually breaking user content is the biggest concern. If something breaks user content or has potential to break user content, then it would be like big no, like that one like we're unlikely gonna accept. If it introduces, the other concern is if it introduces things that people might rely on, like some behaviors, that like we would need to replicate with like the new renderer, for example. Then also we might not might not accept it. But if it's kind of transparent, it just kind of gives you more performance without really changing the outward behavior. Then I think we would likely accept it. Like there might be still caveats when we look at it and be like, okay, like maybe this is gonna be an issue. But if it's transparent, it doesn't require users to modify the content or break the content or introduce behaviors users can rely on. For example, their content would look different with this feature than without. Then it should be okay. In the case, say there's a collection C# that you want to expose through data feed and it's already somewhat prepared. How hard would it to expose the elements of the collection via new data feed? What is the way to give the source's data feed source? Again, it depends on what the collection is. You might need to look more specifically because it's I don't know if you're talking about this collection that's somewhere in memory. I don't know if it's data model collection. Which type of data model collection are you talking about? There's giving something concrete might help because right now it should be hard for collection most collections and data model, but I don't know what type of collection you're talking about. Angel Boy VR is asking, I think what I meant as is there a root of the root of the root that is behind the inspector? I could be wrong. There's not, you cannot really inspect above the root because the root, for the world, that's the highest, item there is. So you cannot really go above it. And the worlds, the individual worlds, they kind of isolated from each other. So you cannot access that.
There's a misconception that things with a null parent are above root or whatever. They're just not in the root. There's no above the root. The root is the root is the world that you're in. There are other types of component containers, a user. Users have their own type of components that are that are like similar-ish to how like you would put them on a slot, but instead it's on a user. But that's about it. They're not like outside of root though. They're just on the user.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna like modifier like would elements X be on the root slot? Like I mean, the word itself. I mean, I guess you could consider that there's like stuff that doesn't exist within the root, like the users and streams, because those don't exist in transform hierarchy. But like they're just kind of like in parallel, like they're not like above the root. And it's all the questions, and we've got 5 minutes left. So I don't know if there's like any last minute questions. We don't have time for anything else right now. Like I was wondering, actually there's a question. Would you guys like, we want to do another tier list. What should we cover? What would we like to see? And we got a little more. Sanserga is asking, see alternative options for body user list button click exist. If you're looking data model, can resolve some missing clicks? Generally it can't, because like the click happens within an update and data model sync happens with an update too, so those should be like interlinked. The last part is, how do you imagine handling exec flow between users when hard permission system becomes a thing? I feel like a lot of things would break if you only allow certain users modifying certain slots. All users list, dashboard items I found uses something like the model toggle local. I mean, that's kind of the point of like hard permissions, is like you don't allow users to break, like, you know, change some things. Like if you don't want a user to change something and the user wants to change something, then that is broken from your perspective, but like, you know, that's your choice. Is I don't want this user to be modifying this thing. So yes, that fundamentally breaks, like if the user wants to modify the thing that you're not letting them to modify. So like that's kind of the point.
I don't think it would be much of an issue for most things though, since things tend to be pretty self-contained, and I imagine what you would mostly use hard permissions for is that people don't just spawn the nuclear slot destroyer 9 million and destroy your entire world with one button press, right?
But it's also like, say like you don't want somebody like, you know, making modifications to part of the world.
Yeah.
You know, if you have an item that like, you know, relies on making modifications like, you know, to part of the world, yeah, that will not work. But it's because like, you know, whoever like is hosting or whoever's like, you know, running the world doesn't want you to do that. So if they don't want you to do that, then you can't do that. And you know, the permissions, like you wouldn't need to ask for permission to do it. Grand UK is asking, so let's say exposing a list through data feed, say a list component. There's not really like list component, so like that one would not really work because that's not part of data model, so that wouldn't work. Super Visuals Bear is asking, create a mix during that symbolizes Froox. What's in the mix drink? Definitely mango.
Mustard.
No mustard. So people are saying materials tiers list. It might be interesting. Menu tabs tiers list. Actually, it might be interesting. Menu tabs tiers list.
I like the materials tier list. I have some material opinions.
Yeah, materials could be interesting. Okay, so we could do materials. The question is like, are we doing like, how are we gonna do that one? Because there's a bunch of materials and like should we have like some good samples of each material, but we like need somebody to make some?
I mean, we could ask Garrett or something.
Yeah, just we'll be like, can you make us a good example of every material ever?
Hey, material man, make every material. Thank you.
Make every material. And that's also the thing, because you can like, there's materials you can make them like look lots of different ways. So maybe we just look at them like them by name. I mean, we could literally just like, you know, grab the tool and just spawn one and just use the default and just judge them. So we'll be like, okay, create new, and we're gonna create like, I don't know, PBS metallic, and then just put it wherever. There's gonna be a lot of like very similar looking ones still. It's gonna be like PBS, PBS slice. There's gonna be a lot of like ones that are color mask metallic. That's gonna be harder to like visualize. We'll think about it. Anyway, we're now out of questions. Sorry, not out of questions. We have questions, but we're out of time. Which seems to happen sometimes. Like people, if you have questions, please ask them before the stream ends. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for watching. I hope like you enjoyed the stream. And thanks everyone for supporting this platform as well. So whether it's like, just by being part of it, like, being part of the community, or helping users, helping us now with like, our open source projects as well, or supporting us, financially through either Patreon or Stripe. If you're on Patreon, please consider switching to Stripe. Like we get like about 10% more for the same amount of money I pay, and that actually helps quite a bit. But like either way, like, however like you support us, it helps, keep this platform like going. It keeps us, pushing it forward and making it like better. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm gonna check if there's anybody to raid. And we should see you next week. Let's see. Who's streaming Resonite? Maybe just Creator Jam. Is it just Creator Jam? It's just Creator Jam, so I guess we're sending everyone to Creator Jam. Right. Great, Creator Jam. Okay. So thank you very much, and thank you for all the questions, and we'll see. We'll see you next week, hopefully, I think. Bob. Right. Okay. Let's see. Stop streaming and